So my first step with the rose hips is to clean them really well in a bucket of water and then dump it through a colander, get off the rest of the grime, and then we'll put it back in the bucket again and soak it again for a little while because I want them to be completely hydrated. And they've actually been sitting in this bucket since before Thanksgiving, and we're starting to get a little dried out before I'd had a chance to deal with them. So getting plumped back up. Okay, so I double wash these and I let them rehydrate for a little bit, and I know it seems counterintuitive to let them rehydrate when I'm just going to dehydrate them again, but they're easier, in my opinion, to work with if they're a little more rehydrated. So what I do is I pull off the end bit like so, and then cut it in half. And some of these are really quite tough. Okay, and it has seeds inside, and you want to take that part out and get rid of that, because that will make things bitter, and you don't want bitter tea. Even if you can add sugar or honey or whatever, you really don't want it to be bitter. So get all of that cleaned out. This one's being particularly stubborn. And then take off the little bit of stem, if it'll come off. There we go. And then you're left with these bits that you can then cut into smaller pieces if you like, or you can dehydrate them at this size. Now, I did not get even a cup's worth, so I am just going to dehydrate these for tea. Again, I just pick off that bit, and this one's quite a bit easier. It's much softer to get through, and all the seeds come out. And then that goes in to the save container for dehydrating. Now, ideally, you want to get to these either the day you pick them or the day after you pick them, but it took so long for it to freeze, which sweetens these, that I ran into the holidays and just didn't get it done. And if once you get it broken, it's then often easier to finish pulling it open with your fingers. And I will come back when it's time to dehydrate. Okay, so I ended up with about 2/3 of a cup of rose hips and that much waste. The seeds do take up a lot of it. This took me about an hour to get all these seeds out. So it's very time consuming. I mean, you want to be doing something else while you're doing it, listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video or something. Okay, now I'm going to take them and put them in the dehydrator. Okay, so I have my dehydrator set to the fruit setting, which is 135 degrees. And I'm putting them in for 6 hours, and then I'll check on them. They might have to go all night. It took the rose hips 6 hours to dry on 135, the fruit setting in my Excalibur dehydrator. And that's the sound it should make when it's dry. And it'll be a little brittle and very wrinkly. Okay, I'm going to make a tea with rose hips, calendula, and bergamot petals, or bibo. Bergamot is also known as monarda. Okay, I am going to make 4 cups of tea. So I will need 1 teaspoon of rose hips for every cup of tea. And then calendula, that's about 4 teaspoons. And the same with my bee balm. I've made this tea enough to know what the amount should look like. And then I pour my boiling water into the infuser. And this will steep for 15 minutes. Okay, the tea has steeped for a good 15 minutes, and the water has changed to an almost pinkish color, rose tinted maybe. And this is plenty sweet enough that it doesn't need sugar, in my opinion. Now, if you don't have an infuser, you can put it in a tea ball and just put it in a cup of boiling water instead. But I was making tea for 3 of us, so the infuser works better for making a lot. Alright, and the kids will divide up the rest. Okay, so I also wanted to share some facts about rose hips that a lot of people may not know. Roses are related to plums, apples, blackberries, and raspberries. The rose hips are the fruit of the rose. Roses will grow in colder climates than citrus, so if you need a source of vitamin C, they are really ideal for northern climates. Not just vitamin C, but rose hips are a rich source of vitamin E, the B complex vitamins, bioflavonoids, selenium, manganese, and pectin. They contain trace amounts of sulfur, silicone, potassium, and magnesium as well. Rose hips are such powerhouses. They contain 20 to 40% more vitamin C, 25% more iron, 28% more calcium, and 25 times the amount of vitamin A of an orange. More importantly, dried rosehips are a great way to have something in your food storage that contains vitamin A, which is hard to find in most food storage systems. Outside of storing vitamins, there's not a lot of things with vitamin A in it that store well. So this is definitely a plus in my book because the body really needs vitamin A. In a survival situation, rose hips will not be recognized as a food source by many people. They just would probably think it was a poisonous berry or a seed pod, but you can actually eat fresh rose hips. It's a lot of work because they have a lot of seeds, but you can do it. You can also make jelly, syrup, or tea. Tea from dried rose hips is made with 2 teaspoons per cup of boiling water and steeped for 15 minutes. Tea from fresh rose hips is made with 1 tablespoon of rose hips per cup of boiling water for 10 minutes. Now, I only used a teaspoon per cup in the tea that I made because I was also using bergamot and calendula. If I had just been using straight rose hips, then I would have used the 2 teaspoons per cup. But I was doing an all-over medicinal blend to try to knock the heck out of this cold. So anyway, those are some facts, and I hope that this video proves useful.